Preparing for GDPR is pretty high on my priority list at the moment. But I'm not panicking. I'm starting with quick, easy steps. And I'm looking on it as an opportunity. Meeting the requirements by May 2018 will ensure we've got the right protection and compliance in place for the long term. Today, I'm meeting Bojana Bellamy, President of the Centre for Information Policy Leadership, to get advice on the best way to prepare for GDPR and leverage the potential benefits. Bojana, thanks so much for joining us. So Bojana, how can a CISO contribute to GDPR compliance in the context of his or her organisation's digital transformation?
Well, Jane, great to talk to you today. And I think really the role of CISO is going to be critical in the GDPR compliance. And here is why. There are certain areas where I think CISO will particularly be useful and a great ally to Chief Privacy Officer as well. The first one is around understanding the data. GDPR requires us to know what data we have, where it is held, what is the level of sensitivity of data, having records of processing, mapping of data, and that's what CISOs do very well. The second thing is around data privacy impact assessments and privacy and security by design. Privacy officer will never be able to do this without CISO, and that's the area of involvement. The third area where I see great involvement for CISO also is in ensuring that company is ready to deal with security breaches. So it's not just about preventing the breach, which is obvious, but it's also about readiness to deal with the breach and readiness to then manage the breach and notify individuals and regulators, because that is what GDPR requires. And I think without CISO, we simply would not be able to do that. And perhaps this to me is the most important role.
And how can a CISO help identify and classify relevant personal data?
So data classification and identification is hugely important because GDPR is forcing us to understand our major assets. Without CISO, I don't think anybody would be able to do that, because CISO's role is indeed to understand where data is, what data we have, how is it classified in terms of sensitivity, and potentially also to be able to tag data. We did a survey on organizational readiness to GDPR about this time last year, and data tagging and data mapping and classification was one area where most companies were lagging.
Can you tell me what the purpose is of a data privacy impact assessment, or DPIA?
So Jane, as you know, DPIA is this new requirement of GDPR, and the purpose is twofold. One, it is really every time we launch a new project, new product, new service, new technology, new initiative in an organization, we have to understand what is the privacy impact of that technology, tool, project. So it means understanding what are the risks and harms that we are potentially creating for people who are going to be subject of this technology. The second purpose of DPIA is ensuring that we implement appropriate controls and requirements and measures to mitigate those risks. And as I say, those are the risks to individuals, but ultimately it's also risks to organizations. Because if we do not comply with privacy requirements, then we are going to also create risks to ourselves as companies. One thing that we have seen, again, in the survey that I mentioned, is that organizations are not using technology and tools to industrialize how they manage DPIAs. And this is going to be really critical to do, because I expect many more organizations will have to do DPIAs as a matter of course, as a matter of default, with a cross-functional team, including the CISO, and that has to be industrialized. We're going to need tools and technologies to help us do that seamlessly and efficiently.
So you've talked us through the purpose of the DPIA. How can a CISO assist in the performance of the DPIA?
CISO is going to be a critical and integral part of a DPIA process, together with the data privacy officers, with engineers, with project and business teams. I think CISO is going to be very well placed to understand the notion of risk and risk assessment, and specifically security risk, because in security we have been doing these risk assessments for a very long time. We have got methodology, we have got the understanding of what risks are, how to address them, how to assess them, how to control, how to quantify. So this is a new thing for privacy. So I think CISO can help us, first of all, and guide us in understanding and assessing those risks, both privacy and security risks, and secondly, certainly in implementing mitigations and controls to reduce that level of risk. Take, for example, a project which involves outsourcing to a third party or using a third party service provider. That would require potentially data privacy impact assessment if it includes large amount of personal data of sensitive nature as well. And the CISO would be able to understand what are the risks of using this third party, perhaps in a different country with multiple channels, with multiple access points, and then what are the controls that we need to implement in order to mitigate those risks. So I think that role will be critical and integral as well.
And what is the current and future state of GDPR certification, and how should CISOs and their organisation be thinking about it?
Great question, Jane. You should be thinking about it, I think, for sure. GDPR has introduced this concept of certifications and seals, and I think it's a very promising concept because use of data and data privacy and security is all about digital trust and digital confidence, and certifications can certainly help us in delivering that trust. So take, for example, business-to-business situations. I think for companies who are, for example, procuring third-party services, the fact that a third party has a certification, which means that they comply with GDPR, certainly would give them some confidence that they're dealing with a trusted party. If I was a company procuring services, I would want to work with a trusted third party, and I would want to choose, first of all, the company who probably has got certification. So I think this is a very promising concept, but it is a concept that is not going to be ready and steady for us to use in May 2018. There is quite a lot to be done around certifications, ensuring we have the criteria for certifications, ensuring we have certifiers accredited to conduct the certifications, and then organizations being ready to go and achieve these certifications. So this is really going to be work in progress.
Is there a benefit for implementing BCRs to support the GDPR? And if so, what role can CISOs and DPOs play?
So let me explain what binding corporate rules, or BCRs, are first, Jane. So BCR means having a system of privacy and security policies, procedures, rules, controls in the whole of organization at global level that is actually complied by all employees and complied by every single entity, and that enables that organization to share personal data of their customers, clients, or their own data across the global organization because there is this high and uniform level of privacy and security protection. So it's quite technical. And so those companies who have BCRs at the moment are going to be in a great position. Those companies who have BCR in place will reaping benefits and advantages. Companies who are starting implementation of GDPR at the moment may actually want to consider whether they want to do the binding corporate rules at the same time, because as I say, the two are really the same. And what has to happen is that BCRs have to be approved by a privacy regulator, and that in some way gives you a seal of approval by the regulator that you are trusted and compliant company. So I would say doing two at the same time makes lots of sense, because in fact it would avoid duplications and you would leverage the same compliance and implementation program. Now, this is again a cross-functional attempt to do BCR and to have GDPR implementation. CISO and Chief Privacy Officer will have to work together at this, and of course time is of essence as well, because sometimes these approvals take a little bit longer, so working together actually helps speed this process up.
And a really important question for me, how can I turn GDPR into an opportunity for my business?
It's a great question, Jane, and I think it's one that many senior leaders are asking themselves, because there is so much focus on compliance around GDPR, around these defensive postures around how do we avoid 4% or 2% fine, and really that's not the way to look at it. I think the smart leaders and smart organizations are going to see an opportunity in GDPR. First of all, we talked about the value and importance of data as the major company asset and digital transformation. Well, data is driving the way our companies are delivering services, are buying services, are creating new products and services. It's driving innovation and economic growth. If we use GDPR as a business enabler, then GDPR allows us and enables us to do more with data, to use data in the way that actually brings economic benefits to us as organizations. So that's the first thing. I would like to see GDPR addressed at boardroom level, from backroom to boardroom, in a much more strategic, much more visionary way, with a much more cross-functional team that consists of CISO, CIO, CPO, Chief Privacy Officer, Chief Data Officer, Chief Legal Officer, because really this is a company business imperative. It really is not just legal compliance. The second reason why this is more than just legal compliance, it's an opportunity, is because our customers, be it our business customers or our consumers, expect from us to protect their data and information. And that is a matter of digital trust and digital confidence. So there are these increased expectations that we want to work with trusted companies, with trusted partners. That's where GDPR again comes into play. It does have some interesting concepts around accountability, which means the need to have a comprehensive privacy and security program and policies and procedures. It has got something around certifications, we discussed that, which again will drive better compliance. So about the need to deliver better transparency around data use. Of course, the need to protect data better from security and cyber attacks, and of course to deal with this in a more responsible way. So it is really all about enabling responsible use of data for the benefit of organization, for the benefit of the customers, consumers, and greater society. And that's how we should look at it. And that's how you should look at it, I hope, as well.